The incompetence finally leaves. Ha! Mike, who settled in as the acting CEO, mocks me. His entourage of employees also look down on me, smirking. If I leave, all of the CEO's favorites will be fired. Mike's sister, the executive vice president Alice, bites her lip in frustration. What are you thinking? If Jack leaves, the company really won't be able to function. Shut up. I'm the acting CEO and you're the EVP. If you can't listen to me, then you should resign too. The CEO's wife, Linda, is completely on Mike's side. If I resign, Mike will take over the company, and I have no power to stop it. Watching this family-run business's internal strife is painfully distressing. I might as well resign. Thank you for everything up till now. I hum my head deeply. As I raise my head, I see that Mike, Linda, and the other employees have turned pale. Turning around, I am astonished. My name is Jack. I'm a 32-year-old salesman, working for a mid-sized design company, Harrison Design. Our company is family-run, with the upper management having the last name Harrison. The CEO is Mr. Harrison, the executive vice president is his son Mike, and the managing director is his daughter Alice. The CEO's wife, Linda, doesn't hold an official position, but she often comes to the office to complain about the employees. I've heard that family-run businesses often turn into tough workplaces. Indeed, Linda, who wanders around the office without doing any work, can be annoying at times. However, as long as I ignore Linda's complaints, it's a pretty good place to work. The primary reason is that Mr. Harrison, the CEO, is a very respectable person. He never throws his CEO status around and always considers the employees' opinions. That's why our company has a good atmosphere. The employees work comfortably without harboring any grievances. Mr. Harrison's children joined the company's leadership about 5 years ago. His eldest daughter Alice is a year older than his son Mike, but Alice is just the managing director, and Mike is the executive vice president. Alice doesn't really complain about this. Alice, a graduate from a renowned university in a major city, is extremely capable and never brags about it. She puts the employees' comfort first, making her the type of female supervisor you'd willingly follow. On the other hand, Mike, who became the executive vice president, is somewhat problematic. Before joining his father's company, Mike traveled the world as a backpacker, while Alice gained experience in another design office. There's nothing wrong with world travel. But Mike seems unable to shake off his student mentality and doesn't like hearing anything unpleasant. Perhaps our company still clings to a male-dominated society, given Mike's promotion despite being younger. Linda's influence is a major factor in Mike's usefulness. She dotes on Mike and seems to indulge all his whims. Yet, as the son of the respectable Mr. Harrison, Mike will probably change as he gains experience. I thought I was still young, but it's been 10 years since I graduated college. During that time, I've worked solely for Harrison Design. As more young people join, I feel my age. I try my best not to become an unpleasant supervisor. Additionally, I have a unique connection with Mr. Harrison. He enjoys playing chess, but few people in the office can match him. While there are people who play pool and checkers, I'm one of the few who can play chess. So we often play in his office during lunch breaks or after work. We don't hold back, and our win rates are about even. Well, I lost today. Maybe I'm getting old, says Mr. Harrison. What are you talking about, Mr. Harrison? We still need you to keep going strong. Mr. Harrison, having turned 60 the other day, started to worry about his age. From my perspective, he's still plenty young, vibrant, and the perfect example of a 60-year-old professional. It seems his concern about his age partly comes from the fact that his son Mike is still not capable enough to be left in charge with confidence. Leaving with a loss feels unsatisfying. How about it, Jack? One more game. Sure, but I won't go easy on you. Mr. Harrison laughs heartily, and we begin setting up the chess pieces again. Then, one day, something happened. A female employee rushes out of the CEO's office in a panic. Somebody call an ambulance. Mr. Harrison collapsed right after he said he's having chest pains. As we employees head towards the CEO's office, we find the door open, and several employees have already crowded inside. I hear the loud voices of Mike and Alice. Dad, hang in there. I'm loosening your tie now. Dad, you'll be okay. Just don't move. The ambulance is on its way. The paramedics arrived quickly and took Mr. Harrison away on a stretcher. Accompanying him were the executive vice president, Mike, and the managing director, Alice. Linda was at home and was informed, said she would head straight to the hospital. Meanwhile, us at the office couldn't focus on work, anxiously waiting for news from Mike and Alice. Soon, Alice called the company. Dad's completely unconscious now. He's in a critical condition with arrhythmia and high fever, she said. From that day, a wave of unease spread throughout the office. While we tried to keep working, everyone was whispering about the future of Harrison Design. If Mr. Harrison doesn't make it, will we all lose our jobs? No, the executive vice president and managing director are still here. One of them will take over. But one of them was a significant issue. I thought things might work out if Alice became the CEO, but I was only anxious about the future if Mike took the position. There were several family meetings at the Harrison household. Ultimately, my worst fears were confirmed. Mike, as the eldest son, was appointed the acting CEO. This is what I think is the downside of family-run businesses. But it's not like the employees could vote for an acting CEO. The next day, Mike arrived at the office, taking on his new role with confidence. During the morning assembly, Alice, the managing director, announced it to all the employees. Mr. Harrison is still unconscious. Harrison Design is facing its biggest crisis since its founding. Let's rally behind the acting CEO and get through this crisis together. As I listen to Alice's words, I find myself lost in thought. Is this really okay for Alice? Is she truly satisfied with this? A few words, please, acting CEO. I know everyone is anxious at a time like this, but I need you to trust me and give it your all. If we all work hard, surely my father's condition will improve. One of Mike's supporters starts clapping. Soon, other employees join in with the applause. I join in while intently watching Alice. Alice, trying not to reveal her true feelings, joins the applause with a cold smile. An employee standing next to me mutters softly, "What's going to happen now? I'm really worried." It seems I'm not the only one feeling anxious. A few days have passed since Mike became the acting CEO, and its effect is already apparent. Mike has begun implementing major layoffs. It's been 5 years since Mike joined Harrison Design, and there are quite a few employees who are dissatisfied with him. Unfortunately, I am one of them. It appears he wants to get rid of anyone he considers a nuisance. For now, let me explain what's happened so far. Before the layoffs started, Linda had begun frequenting the CEO's office. I don't know what they were discussing, but it didn't seem like good news for us employees. "Hey, someone take somebody to the CEO's office and check out the situation." A female employee made tea and knocked on the door of the CEO's office. We all held our breath, listening to the sound. But unfortunately, hardly any voices leaked out. We waited for the female employee who delivered the tea to return. Soon, she came back running. It looks like layoffs are definitely happening. Anyone who doesn't align with the acting CEO's views is out. That means those who oppose the executive vice president. No, the acting CEO in the past are definitely targets. What should we do? I've been pretty outspoken. If that's the case, I'm in a similar boat. Ever since Mike and Alice joined the company, it was clear who sided with the EVP and who with the MD. I was firmly anti-EVP, meaning I supported Alice. Then two of Mike's supporters from the CEO's office walked in, and we all fell silent. "What's this, a funeral? It's so quiet here. We need to support Harrison Design under the acting CEO now." "Well, who knows how many of you will remain? Just you wait and see." The two supporters exchanged glances and burst into loud laughter. It seemed their future was secure. And so, from the next day, one by one, people were let go. First, it was those who openly opposed Mike's methods. Then, those who had never voiced opposition but sided with Alice when issues arose. Alice became increasingly isolated. It seems Mike drove Alice out of Harrison Design. Despite being siblings with just a year's age difference and sharing the same parents' blood, why couldn't they get along? Eventually, I was the only one left supporting Alice. Alice bit her lip in frustration. "My mother always favored Mike. I've always been the one to oppose her, so I guess I'm not the favorite," Alice said. "Is the acting CEO, Mike, regularly visiting Mr. Harrison at the hospital?" Alice shook her head weakly. "He's left it all to the hospital. He seems to think there's no hope for a recovery. Mike is going to take over Harrison Design for good." "Alice, are you visiting Mr. Harrison in the hospital? How is his condition?" "There's been a significant change, actually. A good one. But Mike's actions have been so swift, I'm not sure if it's going to be in time." The fact that she mentioned in time suggests there might still be a chance for Mr. Harrison's return to the company. I felt a glimmer of hope in the darkness. "Alice, next time you visit Mr. Harrison, please take me with you. I might not be able to make much difference, but I want to help in any way I can for his recovery." "Thank you. I haven't been to visit in the last few days. Let's go right after work today." Just then, one of Mike's supporters approached and directed me to the CEO's office. Alice's face tensed up. It looked like my time had come to be let go. I bowed deeply to Alice. "It's finally time. It's hard to leave you behind, but I guess I have to face him now," I said. "I'm coming with you. I can't stand this outrage," Alice declared. We both entered the CEO's office. Mike sat in a high-back luxury chair, one of his supporters standing to his right, and Linda, looking pleased, stood further to the side. The supporter, who had led me in, quickly positioned himself to Mike's left. "Jack, you're also fired as of today, but you've dedicated 10 years to the company, so we'll call it early retirement. You'll get a decent severance package, so don't worry," Mike announced. There was no point in making a scene. I quietly nodded, understood. Mike mockingly laughed at me. "Glad the incompetent is finally gone." His supporters looked down on me, smirking. Alice bit her lip in frustration but quickly retaliated. "What are you thinking? If Jack leaves, the company really won't be able to function." "Shut up. I'm the acting CEO, and you're the MD. If you can follow my orders, then you should resign too," Mike snapped. Then Linda, who had been standing to the side, spoke up. "You're just like a limbless body now, unable to do anything. You're talented, so why not get hired by another company?" "Mom, are you saying I'm unnecessary for this company?" Alice asked. "Oh, you're just realizing that now. This company will be inherited by Mike alone. Don't worry, we'll adequately replace the employees we've lost," Linda said, smugly. Are these the words a mother bestows upon her own daughter, to whom she gave life? Once I leave, Mike's takeover will be complete, but I never had the power to stop it in the first place. Watching this family-run business split from the inside is heart-wrenching. I feel sorry for Alice, but I'm exhausted too. Maybe it's better to just resign. "Mike, Alice, Linda, I truly appreciate everything you've done for me," I said. I hung my head deeply. As I raised my head, I saw the pale faces of Mike, Linda, and their supporters. Turning around, I was astonished. There was Mr. Harrison in a wheelchair. A nurse, dressed in plain clothes, was pushing the wheelchair. "The doctor gave me permission to come out for an hour," Mr. Harrison said. Though he looked a bit thinner, Mr. Harrison's eyes were sharp, and he radiated energy. Linda staggered toward Mr. Harrison. When did you recover enough to use a wheelchair?" Linda exclaimed. "You and Mike never visited, so you wouldn't know, but my condition has been improving day by day," Mr. Harrison replied. "Oh, that's good. I've been worried all this time," Linda said. Mr. Harrison snorted and looked away from Linda, turning instead to Mike. "I see you've done quite as you pleased in my absence. Remember, you're only the acting CEO, not the CEO." Initially, Mike seemed unable to grasp the situation, but as Mr. Harrison spoke with firm authority, Mike began to tremble. I was just thinking of the company's best interests. I thought you were done for," Mike stammered. "You underestimated me. I'm not one to be incapacitated by something like this. My pulse has stabilized, and my fever has gone down," Mr. Harrison asserted. "That's great. I've been so worried," Mike replied, trying to sound sincere. Mr. Harrison glared at Mike. "Don't say things you don't mean, but fine. It's probably your mother's influence anyway." "It's a misunderstanding, dear. I would never put such ideas in Mike's head," Linda protested. "I've known you long enough to know better. Anyway, Alice, I'm feeling a bit tired. Could you call an assisted taxi to take me back to the hospital?" Mr. Harrison requested. "Of course, Dad. I'll have you give orders from your hospital room. I'll be your hands and feet," Alice responded. Thanks to the incredible commotion, my early retirement was called off. Mr. Harrison's recovery has been remarkable. He's been working hard on rehabilitation to rebuild the muscles that weakened during his hospital stay. Gradually, he started to walk on his own again. I began visiting the hospital room daily with Alice, and each time we saw him, he seemed more energetic. However, it looked like a full recovery would still take some more time. So, Alice brought a computer into Mr. Harrison's hospital room to make it easier for him to work. With Alice's assistance and me helping her, he could manage his CEO duties for telework from the hospital room. Despite being 60, Mr. Harrison is quite familiar with computers, so he was pleased to be able to work from his hospital room. He opened his laptop and turned on the power. "Well then, what should we tackle first? First, let's restore Harrison Design to its original state." What Alice displayed on the computer screen was a list of employees who had been fired. It might seem too good to be true to fire them on our own accord and then ask them to come back, but we can't operate without them. I'm prepared to apologize to each of them personally, she said. "That's right. I'll join you in apologizing. None of this would have happened if I hadn't fallen ill in the first place," Mr. Harrison agreed. Following Mr. Harrison's instructions, the fired employees were brought back. We all rejoiced at being reunited with smiles. "I'm relieved to be reinstated. I was worried about my remaining mortgage," one employee said. "That's good to hear. Let's continue to support Mr. Harrison," another added. With this, 90% of the original staff was restored. Unfortunately, we couldn't say it was 100% back to the old company. Now, we just needed to post job openings and bring in new talent. A fresh breeze would surely help the company grow even more. Eventually, Mr. Harrison was discharged and began attending work in a wheelchair. Getting sick is no joke. If you let your guard down, your son might just take over the company, he joked. "That's right, Dad. We still need you to be strong," Alice agreed. Mr. Harrison and Alice had a genuinely good relationship, full of mutual trust. Unbeknownst to us, the Harrison family had split into two factions, Mr. Harrison and Alice, and Linda and Mike, sadly opposing each other. Linda must have loved Mr. Harrison to have married him. Maybe love between a man and a woman doesn't last forever. As an unmarried man, I had no right to comment, but with most of the employees back, it was time for retribution against those who had betrayed Mr. Harrison. First, both of Mike's supporters were fired. Those two being around made Mike overestimate himself, but the real culprit here is Linda. Mr. Harrison reflected. As time passed in their marriage, they both grew increasingly dissatisfied with each other. Gradually, Linda became overly affectionate towards only Mike. Mr. Harrison, worried about Mike's carelessness but also showing his form of love, had appointed him as the executive vice president, a position higher than Alice's, despite her being older. It seems this act of love didn't quite reach Mike's heart. Other employees who sided with Mike were only given severe warnings. Employees are vulnerable. They have to adapt to whoever is in charge. It was a tough decision for them as well. Mr. Harrison understood this and refrained from demotions or dismissals. The main culprits in this situation were undoubtedly Mike and Linda. For Mr. Harrison, they were his son and wife, but they had to be appropriately punished. Firstly, Mike was demoted to a regular employee for manipulating employee fates in Mr. Harrison's absence. This personal decision seemed to have hit Mike hard. Having been appointed executive vice president upon joining the company, and even using the CEO's office in his father's stead, it must have been unbearable for him. Ashamed of being a regular employee, Mike started coming to the office less frequently. For us in management positions, it was actually convenient not to have him around, as it was unclear how to direct him. However, his frequent absences became a concern, so I asked Alice about his home situation. Alice lived alone, but Mike had always lived with their parents. So, he's been shut in his room, with the housekeeper leaving his meals in the hallway outside. It's unbelievable, Alice said. He might have lost his confidence all at once, I remarked. However, Linda, who dotes on Mike, blames the clue-like turmoil on Mr. Harrison's illness. Their marital relationship seemed irreparably damaged. Both Mr. Harrison and Linda, deeply caring for their children, were living together for their sake, even though it was a struggle. Mr. Harrison decided to punish Linda as well, banning her from entering the company. When Linda complained, Mr. Harrison showed her photos and documents gathered by a detective agency. "You've been having an affair all this time. Did you think I knew nothing about it?" he confronted her. The reason Linda frequently visited Harrison Design was because her lover was there. Her lover was a young employee in his 30s, to whom Linda had been generously giving a lot of money. Since Mike became acting CEO, there had even been talks of promoting this man to a managerial position as a special favor. "I had feelings for you after all these years together, but with this incident, even that's gone. The money you squandered was earned through my hard work," Mr. Harrison lamented. Linda desperately made excuses, but Mr. Harrison was not willing to listen. As the CEO's wife, her attempts to privatize the company were a serious offense. Mr. Harrison and Linda ended up getting a late-life divorce. However, Linda's lover quickly submitted his resignation and returned to his hometown. Mike, who adored Linda, vehemently opposed the divorce. "It's unfair to Mom. How is she supposed to live if they divorce now? She should just work or do something. It's normal to work to live. You should try working for a change," Mr. Harrison responded. Eventually, Mr. Harrison fired Mike, who showed no inclination to work at all. Thus, Mike and Linda were both ousted from the house. Normally, a young and able son like Mike would work and support Linda. However, Mike just won't seem to get a job. Having been pampered as the executive vice president and acting CEO, it seems his pride won't allow him to work under someone else. As a result, their finances dwindled. Mother and son, with nowhere else to go, reluctantly returned to Linda's family home in the countryside. However, the house had passed on to Linda's brother and his wife. Knowing their plight, they couldn't turn them away. They were given a small room and lived there in constrained circumstances. As for those of us who remained at Harrison Design, Mr. Harrison fully recovered and no longer needed a wheelchair. Though he used a cane just to be safe, but he walked firmly on his own feet. With the CEO's full return, the company regained its normalcy. I was promoted to head of the sales department in the next personal change. The responsibility was greater, but Mr. Harrison trusted me. In the support of my subordinates, I found my work fulfilling. Ellis became the executive vice president, serving as an excellent confidant and advisor to Mr. Harrison. I should have appointed Alice as the executive vice president from the beginning. Then, this clue-like incident would never have happened. Mr. Harrison said, "I understand you wanted to give Mike a chance, Dad, but it's good we realized early on that he wasn't capable," replied Alice. "They say the more troublesome a child is, the dearer they are. Mike was a perfect example of that." Mr. Harrison deeply regretted appointing Mike, who lacked ability, to the executive vice president position out of paternal affection. Thus, Harrison Design managed to recover from a significant crisis. The company's performance improved, and employee wages increased. We, the employees, are now more motivated than ever to rally under Mr. Harrison's leadership and build up the company. That day, during lunch break, I was Mr. Harrison's chess partner in his office. Just like before the hospital incident, our skills were evenly matched, leading to wins and losses for both of us. Mr. Harrison seems to enjoy this aspect of the game. Like in business golf, it's no fun if you go easy on me. That's true. I completely understand. Mr. Harrison became silent for a while. Just when I thought he was focusing on the chessboard, he said something unexpected. "Jack, aren't you going to get married? You're at a good age for it." I'm a bit embarrassed to say, but I've been so caught up in work that I haven't had a girlfriend. But you're right, I should start thinking about that aspect of my life. I might not have much credibility in giving marriage advice, considering how mine turned out, but maybe it's time you thought about settling down. Maybe I should start attending mixers then. Just then, Alice entered the room with a knock. "Oh, playing chess again. You two always get along so well." "The only one who plays with me is Jack." Alice casually took a seat next to me, watching our match with interest. "Jack, teach me chess too. I want to study and beat Dad someday." "That's a great idea. Playing against me all the time must be boring for Mr. Harrison." Mr. Harrison looked back and forth between me and Alice, grinning. "How about it? Shall the three of us go out for sushi tonight?" "That sounds lovely. Jack, are you free?" "I don't mind at all. I'd be happy to join." Lately, it seems we're spending more time together like this. For me, it's the most comfortable and pleasant relationship. I was just telling Jack it's about time he thought about getting married. Alice, the same goes for you. Don't stay single forever. I want to see my grandchildren. Well, I do feel a bit rushed thinking about childbirth, but I don't have anyone in mind. Maybe I should go to mixers. Alice saying the same thing made me laugh. I was just saying the same thing. "Alice, shall we go to a mixer together next time?" "Oh, that would be nice. Make sure there are some handsome guys. Maybe it would be quicker if you two got married." Alice and I exchanged glances and laughed. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about her in that way. But I felt I still lacked the credentials to ask her out. Looking at Alice beside me, she seemed to blush with embarrassment. I vaguely thought about asking her out for drinks, just the two of us.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.